Hi team, good evening. This is Alekya, business analyst from 10x Academy. We are delighted to introduce Mr. Anvesh Pulijala, a highly accomplished SAP Techno-Functional Consultant with over 16 years of industry experience. He brings extensive expertise across end-to-end SAP ABAP stack, data governance, integrations, and has trained 50 plus batches successfully. With strong techno-functional experience across global MNCs, he quickly progressed into leadership roles and now aims to share that experience to help you accelerate your career growth. Now I would like to hand over the session to him.
Hello, hi everyone. Good evening. So thank you, one and all, to showing the interest in attending for this demo. And probably I think this would be your first time experience where, at least in the industry of edtech, there is a company who is really caring of the functional consultants and coming up with the fabricated codes which used to shape the career of a functional consultant into techno-functional consultant, right? So I've been into this industry for more than 16 years of experience. I started my journey as a technical consultant, in fact, as a basis consultant, and then moved into technical, and then added up more skills into my technical and converted as a full stack ABAP developer. And since worked in the same functional domain into financial supply chain management and master data governance, somewhere I got a tag of techno-functional consultant. Right, the moment I got the tag of techno-functional consultant, my presence in the company or my identity has been completely changed. And I got that kind of always special focus, special treatment, or probably kind of second opinion checks with me. All these kinds of course, giving me a lot of energy to take more challenges. But at the same time, as Alekya was mentioning, it also helped me to shape my career very fast. And I believe most of you believe the same with the techno-functional, right? So let's first see who can attend this course, right? I believe that this course is completely designed for career acceleration. Basically, at TrainX Academy, we craft courses into 3 different programs. One is Learning Essentials, which is for any person who wants to get into a new skill where there is no domain experience, no connectivity with the subject. We call it as a beginner level program. And there are some professionals who are already connected, right? For example, a website developer who knows the JavaScript or any other skills, and he wanted to get into SAP, then we will call it as a career acceleration program, where the same concepts will be used in SAP UFI development. We show them how UFI application should be developed, and then he can accelerate his career, right? Similarly, a person who is having the domain experience in banking, he can learn SAP banking module, and he can again shape his career. He can get good opportunities. So that's how the career acceleration program has been designed. And there would be another program called leadership program. This is for the people who are kind of decision makers, like solution architects, project managers, or department heads, or the IT head, CIOs, CTOs, basically in a company, or a person who is driving a project should take a decision about some of the demands which are going to occur in the project. What is right, what is not, what are the alternatives? All those things will be covered in the leadership program. So while we were doing these programs, somewhere where I noticed that there are a lot of SAP functional consultants with whom we regularly work, and we see a challenge with the functional consultants. Just because of they don't belongs to the technical area, it feels little difficulty in terms of communicating or translating the client requirements in a language where a technical consultant will understand, right? So for that, you need a more experienced technical lead or a solution architect to do that kind of a communication. That is something which I always see in my career. Or there are some cases where a technical consultant just says that the problem has been fixed. When actually functional consultant is testing the incident, he would later realize that it is partially fixed, right? So again, he has to completely dependent on the developer. Or sometimes uh, a client might give a requirement and they would expect, how many days it will take to deliver the solution, where the functional consultant might not have any insights, whether it takes 3 days of effort, 5 days of effort. So it's purely dependent on the technical consultant inputs, right? So these are some challenges which I noticed, and people who have overcome these challenges, we always see them as a subject matter expertise, and we always go to them, and we feel better to discuss any kind of object discussions with them. So why can't the functional consultants who are having interest in this area would convert themselves into a techno-functional consultant is what something which was hitting in my mind. And what are the areas that a functional consultant would regularly using, right, in his day-to-day activities is something that we have identified. And those technical dependencies we just want to introduce so that you guys can shape yourself into a techno-functional consultant, right? That is the reason why we are coming up with this program. So that's what something which I wanted to communicate first. And then who can attend this course, right? I would say any SAP functional consultant, right? Having minimum of 2 to 3 years of experience in its respective domain should be able to attend this session. Now, why to join? So this is something, as I said, when we grow, I mean, for me, I always feel that coming from a technical background, I always feel that I should settle myself into a functional consultant role, because it's always a domain subject, no matter which ERP we are getting implemented. A procurement process is always a procurement process, right? A settlement, financial settlement is always a financial settlement. So probably it is something like once you learn the subject is same. Probably client to client the scenarios might differ, which you will learn it from client, right? From each and every project. You don't need to learn more is what my understanding was. Even in fact, coming from ECC to S4 HANA, I think we always know that it's kind of old wine in a new bottle, right? There is nothing much in terms of the core functional modules have never changed. There are very few points, hardly like 10 to 12 bullet points have been changed. But coming to technical, there is so many things which have changed in the back end. There are serious views introduced. Fiori has become mandate, right? Some of the BW queries has to be implemented now. BTP has been introduced and Analytics has been introduced. So being a technical consultant, we always need to update. So that's one of the challenge what a technical consultant have. But I see that functional consultants not have much is what my take, right? Probably, and it differs to person to person, but that is how I used to think. Now, as I said, when we are growing more into our domain experiences, when we have become a team lead or the project manager, right now, you would have noticed that every company is expecting a candidate should have blended skills, right? Whenever we are getting promoted, our salaries are getting hiked along with the additional responsibilities given to us. So it's not enough for a person to execute his own subject, right? You need to have something plus, probably a functional consultant plus project management, or probably a functional consultant plus solution engineering, probably a technical consultant into product development, product management, something like that. So we always expect that a consultant should have plus. An FI consultant is expected to work on C1 now, right? So when we are learning when we are crafting ourselves into a domain subject matter expertise, the client expectation is to have blended skills. So in that phase, whenever you are trying to capture any requirements, or if you at all you have to implement any strategy in your business process, it is really important for you to understand the technical dependencies. So the business process plus technology is something which a client expectation is now at this moment, right? I'll tell you a reason why. Now, you might have that the AI is also coming, and going forward, the developer jobs might get reduced. Now, we need the reviewers, right? Not the developers. So probably give an input to the system. System automatically generates a code, and probably instead of 10 developers, you would be having one person who reviews the code and see if this is fitting to your requirement or not. So probably 70 to 80% the AI will generate. The remaining 20%, it might have some gaps. So you need to give proper inputs. Again, that gaps would be filled. Probably the 5% or 10% of the code, you need to put your hands and, connect the dots. So that is where it is required. A reviewer is more required. So for that, probably a person who is having a domain knowledge plus development knowledge together would be an ideal person to become in that kind of a reviewer role. The bottom line is a techno-functional role. Generally, a techno-functional role, I believed that it starts with the technical consultant. You work in the same module for so long so that you know the process, and then you convert yourself into a functional consultant role. But the phase where you are transforming yourself, right? The phase in between, you're neither a technical, you're neither a functional, but you're transforming yourself. That is the phase where we call it as a techno-functional consultant. But later now, that is what being expected by the clients, because that helps us in building a project plan, that helps us giving a effort estimation, that helps us managing the team, that helps us how much we need to pay the cost of your project implementation and XYZ. So that is the reason this role is too much important. And the moment you know the technicalities of a requirement, it becomes easy to convert the functional requirement to the technical team. Sometimes you might not have a direct connect with the team lead, or sometimes there are, even in the startups, right? I see, because when I worked in the startups, probably there could be like 2 years guy, 3 years developer will be directly assigned to a functional consultant to get the things developed. So it becomes easy when there is a technical lead, you will be able to give the requirement to the technical lead. It becomes easy to communicate. But with the juniors, it becomes very difficult because they do not really know the entire subject and domain knowledge as well. So if you know these basic aspects, again, it becomes easy to communicate with the technical team and stand as a market demanding profile, right? Always market is expecting that a consultant should do both the jobs, and people who are willing to learn this, it becomes a continuous learning. Now, since I'm also coming from little AI background, the days when we started learning AI, it was very difficult. The kind of programming that we were doing in our programming language or the Python programming language those days, it was very difficult to identify which formula is going to work, right? To evaluate, the data funnel was properly filled or not. But now AI, if you see, there is a lot of transformation happened. You don't need to write even that kind of basic coding. You are just supposed to give the user context, right? You just need to say, in a human language, you just need to give the input to the system. It is generating the code. So that ways, there are multiple things that we need to learn. Now, for every product, For everything, for example, if you are looking for hiring process, there are multiple AIs coming. If you are looking for procurement process, there are multiple AIs coming. In each AI is good in their own ways. So it becomes, it is something which is mandate for us to learn. Going further, it is mandate for us to learn multiple solutions. So that is also something which is important. So to learn any solution, the fundamental principle lies same. The data type is a data type in any solution. The SQL statement is an SQL statement in any solution, right? So the interface is an interface is any solution. So to learn multiple solutions, for example, now Ariba Consultants has a lot of demand in the market. But how many real Ariba consultants would know all these technical aspects? Very few. So that is another reason why you guys need to, to join, right? So that kind of self-interest should be there to learn new things. And this is best for problem solvers and solution engineering profiles. So in case if you're coming from that interest, right? So it helps you to really perform well and think logical and solve these problems. So this is best for those kind of mindset people, right? And as I said, because of evaluation, the reviewer positions are more demanded, and you need to definitely know the basics of any programming, and plus the domain expertise, plus the technology. These are the three things which are expected. And at least now, because SAP is kind of a secured programming, A is not able to really give a proper solution. For example, if I go to I've given some requirement to ChatGPT. Now we cannot rely on this answer. Let's see what it is. So there is a possibility that this read text function model will be there. This is definitely there. And there is no possibility and there is no guarantee this convert to ITF to HTML is there on the system. Because when ChatGPT is trying to function, it will go and look back all the SDN blocks. It will go and look back all the different web application pages and try to see if somewhere this HTML tag is there. It will try to build that. Now, SAP would have marked this function model as obsolete, but ChatGPT does not consider it because that information never knows to ChatGPT. Right? So there are no chances, 100% chances that even this function model exists, and this is something which I experienced multiple times. The only reason why, because our SAP coding is not an open source coding. So whatever the libraries that we build, whatever SAP libraries that build, that only functions or that function models only exist within the SAP GUI suite. So at least as a family of SAP, the hit of AI is not immediate to us, but it is 100% guarantee because already SAP has started to generate the SAP code by AI agents itself, right? Because even client want a solution to be implemented fast with low cost. And there are other solutions which are already readily available now. So the cost of the third-party solutions implementation time is far way better than to compare to any, the standard SAP ERP implementation. So to compete with them, SAP is definitely going to implement it, and they're already in the phase of to do that. And you guys would have already probably you got a chance to heard about there is something called Anthropic has been already started. So consuming it, developing AI-based coding is not a problem. It is so much easy within SAP. So probably next 5-6 years, we should be able to see there are so many less developers will be working on SAP, but most of the functions will be taken over by the solution engineerings or the domain SMEs, subject matter expertise, nothing but the functional consultants. Because sure, AI cannot replace a functional consultant because the process, it's not about the subject, it's about the process which we try to configure, and this process purely customized from client to client. So if we have to meet that kind of demand, definitely this is one of the steps that we guys need to think about. This is some things which we are going to cover in this fast track course. So we will be discussing about basics of programming. It could be data types, it could be internal tables, it would be a variable, a very, very high level. You don't need to code, all right? You don't need to code. You just need to get a very high level idea about it. How a table is being designed, how an internal table and what is the function of an internal table, right? That kind of very basics we will be discussing. And then we would be discussing about frequently used keywords. For example, some loop statements, some if conditions, or case conditions, or some kind of describing the data, which when we are going through the code, you would definitely see this kind of statements. These statements we will be discussing at a high level, right? And then troubleshooting. For example, if someone is asking you to talk about an enhancement, how do you identify a particular screen? And how do you identify the screen number, the program tag to it, the T code tag to it? And in this screen, what are the enhancement options that are available? Which enhancement option is meant for what purpose, right? That kind of troubleshooting is something that we'll be discussing. And there are debugging skills that we'll be discussing. So for example, if there is a dump, analyzing the dump. I mean, you're not expected to identify what is a technical issue it, right? For example, if the client is asking, dear, I'm trying to create a material master, but I see the moment I'm navigating to quality management view, I'm getting a short dump. Can you help me to fix this? You can give two answers. Definitely. Let me talk with my technical team and come back to you. And you can say, I did a bit research about the dump. I see that it is generated because of some data inconsistency, due to which there is a technical dump that has been triggered. I'm going to fix that configuration. But for that, I'm expecting a TR to be created. The moment I got a technical team, I'll get the TR created and the move changes. How does it sound? Right? It's going to add value to your profile. It sounds like you are a subject matter expert. So probably the moment you got a developer, you can tell him, right? So, dear, this is a dump which a client has been reported. Before coming to you, this is some research which I have done. And probably this is related to some kind of programming that you need to take care. And they see this might not take more than a day time. Can you fix it immediately and give me a TR so that I can test it? Right? Then again, when you're saying that you have already put your efforts to troubleshoot the problem, then definitely the developer would take it with more serious attention and he'll try to start working on that. So always a developer will also give that kind of an additional respect to the functional consultants who are doing this kind of the additional who are trying to break their boundaries and do this additional efforts. because you sounds like a technical expert even to the developers. And now in SAP S/4HANA, SAP has introduced hundreds of Fiori applications, right? And some of the web applications, WebDime Pro applications, also consumed into Fiori Launchpad, and everything is becoming now role-based applications. So it is also important for you to understand how these web applications are working, how this will connect to your backend programming's interfaces, and see how the data is being passed. So we'll be discussing on this web application life cycles as well. And then, Miss, I'm sure that every functional consultant, somewhere in his career, he would get a chance to work on this iDocs, right? So most of the times the consultants would not, would not really get into the configuration parts, or they don't know how to reprocess an iDoc, right? But the expectation is that a functional consultant should be able to do it because it is a non-coding activity. But again, just maybe because of flag or maybe because they don't have time, but there is some area where the expected activities are not being performed. One area is iDoc, and interfaces. We should be knowing about RFCs, web services, OData interfaces. These are the only 2-3 different type of interfaces which are there to connect with any SAP or non-SAP system. So it is not really big. It is very small, right? You have only 2-3 different type of interfaces. How you need to expose it so that other parties can consume it. So if we know the high-level touch points, step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that is enough. So we would be discussing this iDocs and interfaces as well in our course. And then the migration concepts, right? So now most of the projects, if you see, SAP is trying to convert their ECC customers into S/4HANA customers or non-SAP customers into SAP. So as part of this project, the migration is something which has become a mandate. You load the customers, you load the vendors, you convert them into business partners, you load the GL accounts, you load the material masters, right? So what are the different migration concepts that are there? What are the different steps that you need to perform in migration? The field mappings, the value mappings, the transformations that are required, and how should we plan to do a migration activity? What is an amount of time it takes, the effort calculation, complexity calculations, all these things we will be discussing in the migration concepts. Right? So these are the topics that we are going to discuss in our fast track course, and then we will see how we can take in case if we need to add any topics to this agenda. So now I wanted to take an honest opinion from the functional consultant. Do you see any other adding one topic will create a value for you guys? I'm open to that. Will you be able to cover BRF Plus? Yes, I can cover BRF Plus. MDG module, no. So MDG module is a separate course. In case if you need to learn MDG module, there is another batch which we are running over the weekends. So last Saturday and Sunday only we have started a batch. In case if you are interested to join there, you can join in that batch. That is completely different.
Is there any mutual concept is there from technical?
Which concept? Sorry?
Technical to functional to technical.
Sorry, can you repeat the question once again? It was breaking in between.
Mutual concept in between technical to functional. Is
mutual concept. I didn't get that. What does it mean?
It means, sometimes both are working together in texting, something verifications.
See now, yes, so when you're doing testing, right, it's all about depending on a development should work, right? Whatever
Yes.
the requirement that you have given to a technical consultant in form of the functional spec, the developer will develop a technical spec, and there will be a testing script that we have to develop, right? The test scenarios. So when we are doing the test scenarios, it should take a reference of the functional requirement and then cover it. So on that note, it is purely, you would be dependent on only two things, right? One, the backend configurations. Anything that you need to configure, any custom tables, right? Customizing data. Probably you need to add a user to a workflow step, or probably you need to add a company code in any. You need to link a company code with any plant. Any such kind of backend dependencies could be there. That is something you mutually discuss with them. So for that, you need to know what are the tables that are varied in a program, right? So in application development or in any functionality, you must be knowing how many tables are being used, what data is getting fetched from which views. So all these things will be discussed in the troubleshooting. Right. So will you be trained how to debug the UFI skin to know the backend tables class methods? Yes. So under the web application lifecycle, basically we have only two concepts, right? A web application, which is WebDyn Pro. Another is a UFI model. These are the only two models what we have. Now, this WebDyn Pro web application will go and dependent on any other backend layers. There are something called the BOPF, where if someone is working on transport and management, human capital management, you must be knowing about BOF. That is one kind of a model. There is something called Genuine model. All these things will feed the data to the UI. But again, WebDim Pro should go and talk with this. So we will be discussing about the WebDim Pro, right? The navigations, the different controllers that are there in the WebDim Pro, the lifetime of each controller. All these things we will be discussing in the WebDim Pro application. Similarly, in OData, there are something like metadata sets and communications, like we have something called get, post, query. This kind of the methods are there using which you read the data and you update the data. So we will be discussing till those touch points on the OData. And SOA manager setup, I don't think we should be getting into that. Is purely a basis activity, right? The SOA manager setup is always a basis activity. We will not get into that, SOA manager activities. But if there is a web services, how to test the web service is something that we'll be discussing. How to debug the web service also we'll discuss.
How much it would be helpful for migrating to BTP, switching to BTP?
Now, the BTP has two roles: BTP technical, BTP administration. Right? So definitely both the profiles will help you to get a good role, good opportunities, but you might not able to get, or might not able to expect the salaries into 2x. Let me help you on a very simple note, because we also do staffing for multiple other companies. See now, as an IT consultant, most of the times 50 lakhs salary in India would be the highest when it comes to fixed part. Fixed part, I mean to say, okay? Variable, you might get 60, 70, 80 lakhs also, but what you finally get is something different. I'm only talking about 50 lakhs. So to get the 50 lakhs of, salary, there are only few things which will help you there to reach there. One, experience should be like more than 10. Skill should be niche. But the risk is more. Simple thing. For example, if something is niche, right? The number of companies who will take the risk factor will be very few. Let me take an example. In India, we got a new car segment called BYD, right? So how many of the car customers who opted for BYD initially is very less, because no one want to take risk. Don't know how is the service for BYD. Don't know how much of hardware cost will be there, right? So they wanted to see first how other customers are feeling. They need to get some review and all things, right? So there is a reliability on any new product is always less. But there are some people, right, who will take the risk. They wanted to show probably I'm using the latest version of car in the market, right? Some prestige or some XYZ reasons. Similarly, when some client has taken a project, right, and they wanted to implement something like an SAP BTP, and if the implementation is completed, then done. You have been onboarded into the company, the project is completed, and there is no immediate project. Do you think the company would pay you, 50 lakhs continuously? So till you get enough demand in the market, always this kind of niche segment is a risk. So you should be having something like your core domain plus niche domain. Niche might give you 50L. Your core might give you 40L. But directly getting into niche is difficult. I mean, not difficult, it's risk. Because you might not get a immediate change. Hope I answered. Any other questions? So the course is going to be designed for 6 to 8 hours maximum, right? 6 to 8 hours, in which we will be able to cover all these topics. And based on the number of audience showing interest, we will be taking a poll. Should we start during the weekdays or it should be weekends? And if it is weekends, what time is something that we'll figure out. The timing would be probably, we'll be discussing later. But for now, you can consider that this is between 6 to 8 hours of course. And team, to be honest, this is something, again, I just wanted to help the functional consultants. And this is where we have crafted this course. And this is the first batch that we are planning to start. Have we extensively worked on BRF Plus? Yes. Any other questions? I think if there are no questions, we can wrap the session. This demo is all about discuss why, what topics that we will be covering, and so on. And probably in case if you guys want to check my profile, it is always available in LinkedIn. You guys can check it. You can see my technical expertise. You can see my functional expertise, the kind of roles that I've executed in the past, and what I'm doing currently. And accordingly, you guys can show the interest to join or not. Yeah. Santosh, may I know what is this? Yeah. See, I'll talk about integration. A concept of integration will be same no matter whether it is S4HANA or ECC, right? Now, that is something that you need to think which application that you're going to develop, because we will be discussing about Fiori application, we will be discussing about OData, and integration of Fiori application could be, I mean, if you're really talking about a built-in app, which activation, I don't get into the activation part because that is purely basis. Once it is activated, how do you integrate is something that we'll be discussing, right? Yeah. Please do not get into setups, right? Setting up is something always a basis activity. We would be only working on the integrations and configurations. Let's limit ourselves into functional and technical, no basis. You're right. As for our research, it does not matter. It is ultimately OData. Yeah, you're right. Okay. So thank you. Thanks for all your time showing interest to join this demo. Let's see, the moment you enroll, we'll announce the batch start date. Thank you all.